Good evening, everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Education, USD 453. When I do roll call, I'd ask the board members to read their individual commitments. Okay? Mrs. Murphy?
Here, I commit to facilitating the wonders and to ask more questions.
Mrs. Wells?
I am here. I commit to not agreeing to push through ideas until they have gone through a discernment phase, earning a majority of support.
Mrs. Price?
I commit to sharing ideas and achieving results for positive change.
Mrs. Overby?
I commit to sharing my wonder with more clarity and share my discernment to provide thoughtful feedback.
Mrs. Wilson?
I commit to working on my wonders without letting it overtake my focus.
Mr. Reed?
I'll work on not discounting the importance of my enabling genius as being nice.
And I'm Mike Carney. I commit to being open-minded and attentive to the ideas of others for the good of the whole and staying focused on the task at hand. Okay. Pledge of Allegiance, huh? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And 1.3, the district mission statement.
Mr. Carney, thank you. This is my monthly reminder. Speak clearly and closely enough to the microphone so our friends at home can hear you all right. To the mission statement, the mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare for every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Thank you. Scheduled patron input. Is Mrs. Baker going to speak? She here? No, not here. Okay, she's not going to speak then. Moving right along. Adoption of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as it's been presented.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Murphy to adopt the agenda, second by Mrs. Wells. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Next thing will be the consent agenda.
I would like to remove 2.7.
2.7. Is that it?
Yeah, that's the only one I've got some concern.
I mean, for the group. Nobody else? Okay, 2.7. So it goes to what,
3.1.
3.1?
Although, no, it's 6.1 on this one, sorry.
Hmm?
Sorry. Let's make that, helps if you don't turn the microphone off. Let's make that 6.1.
6.1, okay. What's the issue? Where is it? I don't have it on here.
Oh, sorry, what is the item?
Yeah.
The item is the digitization of student record archives, and it is being proposed for action. I don't know if that was specified in the type, but it is being proposed for action. So it becomes 6.1.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes that have been asked, making 2.7 6.1.
Second.
Okay, the motion to to adopt, not adopt, amend the agenda. So Mrs. Murphy, second by Mrs. Wells. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Okay. Who's going to talk to this?
Yep, so you will come back to it, I guess is my point. It's going to be a little bit later. So it's item 6. So you are ready for proposed action to enter into executive session if you're
Okay.
if you're ready.
Ms.
Okay.
Sloan, how much time do we need for this first session? 10 minutes. All right, Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under Kansas Open Meetings Act, or KOMA, in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and that we return to open session in this room at 6:14. The board will invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, and Isaac Caverly into the meeting.
Second.
We've got a motion to go into executive session by Mrs. Price, second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Move, say 10 minutes?
Yep. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the staffing order as presented.
Second.
A motion to accept the staffing report by Mrs. Price, seconded by Mrs. Murphy, is that right? All in favor?
Aye.
7-0, I guess. Okay, now we're super eval.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Carney. So here shortly, you're going to see Mr. Bob Hartz. I would say 5 comes as a collective request from several of you. We have shifted to the new super eval system. Just a reminder, you are in the second year of my employment here, which requires a second evaluation in the second semester. And in round numbers, March 1st is kind of that deadline, so 60th day. Several of you have expressed, I think, an overall maybe concern with navigating the system as well as just a general need for refresher. I thought that it did not do any justice for me to lead you through that, but better from the source itself. So tonight is very much about your opportunity to ask questions directly of Mr. Hartz, as well as make sure you understand the next steps for the cycle 2 evaluation for year 2. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, Mr. Hartz is joining us from somewhere, not in Leavenworth. Bob, welcome. Hopefully he can hear us. Maybe?
We have to call it.
Oh, okay. Hold that thought.
We'll just wave.
If you want to log into Super Eval, if you're like me, you like to navigate it on your own. He may be sharing his screen, but if you want to take the chance to get logged in and maybe follow through that. And then Amy, I believe, was going to...
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Amy, we were going to have this cycle document up at some point, correct? Thank you. That's all right. Nope.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, you are in the meeting now. There is one other participant in the meeting.
All right, Mr. Hartz, can you hear us?
Done.
He's muted, it looks like, isn't he?
No, he's not.
There we go.
I can. Yes, I can hear you. Is that Dr. Adams?
Yes, sir. Welcome. Happy New Year to you. I don't know if you can see us yet or not.
Happy New Year to you.
Yes, thank you for being here tonight. So
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep, we've got all 7 board members present. We're going to let you obviously share your screen if you want or whatever, but tonight was very much about that kind of cursory overview and review of the system. And then our HR executive director will also review this, the Kansas specifics on that cycle. But this is a chance for our board members to do a refresher before that second evaluation before March 1st.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks for the opportunity this evening. Happy New Year to everybody. First and foremost, thank you very much for your business and support. Really appreciate it. Tonight, as Dr. Adams had mentioned, just an opportunity for me to show you the platform, show you the steps in the process, show you how the Kansas-specific rubric is built into Super Eval verbatim. Show you that process and what Super Eval is all about. And really, in a nutshell, Super Eval is all about digitizing a self-reflective, evidence-based process to allow Dr. Adams to help upload reflection notes, comments, and evidence around those areas being measured to help inform you as board members how he's meeting those goals. I mean, let's face it, you do have lives outside of being board members, or at times you probably wouldn't think so, but this allows Dr. Adams to, put in, evidence such as links to videos, pictures, websites, referencing maybe pages off of your own website, social media accounts and whatnot, keeping folks, up to date, communication with the community and whatnot. It makes it easier for you to partake in the process, to offer feedback to Dr. Adams, and really it just drives a more meaningful conversation at the end of the year. It just makes better use of everyone's time. So, with that, is there any specifics that you wanted me to, specifically, touch on, or just, dive right in and show you the platform? And I can't see anybody, so Dr. Adams, if you wouldn't mind being my my eyes and ears, for this session, and so that I'm respectful of your time. How much time have you set aside for the overview?
Sure. Good question. Hopefully you can hear me. So the first thing I would say is we had set aside, I would say 15 minutes for this. It was intended to very much be that topical overview. And the second thing is the request is to dive head first, sir.
Okay. Very good. Fair enough. I appreciate that. Let's keep it brief. Less is more. You'll pick it right up. I'm sure if you're used to working with online platforms, I think you'll find this, rather intuitive. So this is the main screen of Super Eval. At the top, we have Mr. Patrick Mahomes. He's our superintendent. In our suspicious district, the Kansas City Chiefs, for the 24-25 school year. It's, pinned here's the 24-25 school year. If you use the platform year after year, this becomes a drop-down school year. So if you ever have to reference a previous year's evaluation, you can do so digitally. You wouldn't have to go to a district clerk's office and pull a paper file. It's pinned to the superintendent's self-evaluation, but if Dr. Adams were to expand this use and use it with the leadership team, that's where these folks would show up below here. So you're not having to log out of one platform and into another. Everything is underneath the umbrella of Super Eval. And then this outlines the 5-step process. Very linear, role-driven process. It's very customizable, and so how you want the process to play out in your district, it can be replicated in Super Eval. These dates are all just sort of reminder dates. If, the annual goals are due, say, middle of August, you just click on the date a calendar appears, click on whatever that date is, and then click on the green check mark. This is defining a process, which is actually one of the standards of excellence in evaluations that's baked into Super Eval, is defining that process. And so these dates just sort of help you keep on track. But the first part of Super Eval, and really the, foundational to Super Eval, is really just the, what's being evaluated. So when I click in here to annual goals and competency selection, it's broken into, 3 different sections. The first one is around performance metrics. So what are those goals that are specific to your district? That's where they would go in here. It's just a word type of editor. This is where the title of the goal goes. Maybe it's the title of a district goal. And then this, what we call a goal description space, allows Dr. Adams to really set those clear expectations. What is my personal goal to reach this, this target area? What's the action plan? And again, this is a word type of editor, so you can alter this, how you see fit. So instead of action plans, it might be means. Instead of indicators of success, it might be deliverables. Instead of putting strategic outcomes in here, you might just want to backspace that out and not include that at all. But this allows you to set those clear expectations so at the end of the year, there's no ambiguity as to what success looks like. And so step 1A, really the toughest part about step 1A is coming up with those goals. Once you have those goals, you can put those into the system. Step 1B, this is where the Kansas rubric resides. So if I were to pull up the Kansas rubric around the district leadership metrics, the first one around communication, the superintendent will develop relationships, provide effective and transparent communication, advocate, and create sustainable community engagement. When I switch over to the rubric, notice it's verbatim right here. The superintendent will develop relationships, provide effective, transparent communication, advocate, create sustainable community engagement, and so on and so forth. So this is where you as the leadership team can say, okay, do we want to include each of the areas, communication, leadership, and allocation of resources, or do we want to perhaps maybe just focus on, allocation of resources? So step 1B allows you to make the evaluation maybe a little more focused, but it just, again, makes it flexible for you as a leadership team, what you want to focus on this particular school year. So those areas with the check mark next to it will appear in the evaluation. Those with any, those that you've deselected will not appear in the evaluation. And then in this last section here, if you wanted to adjust the weights, the desired weights for the different domains, if you wanted to maybe change the weightings of the performance metrics versus the district leadership metrics, you can certainly do that here in step 1C. But really, step 1 is all about, where you put what is being evaluated, and then once that's determined and you come together and you agree to that, Dr. Adams would mark that step complete. This is just a little reminder. Do you and the board agree upon the goals? Yes. And so now it goes to the superintendent's self-evaluation. But before I jump into that, any questions at all about, step 1, where you're putting in the goals and, choosing the district leader metrics?
So the only problem that I had with this entire platform is that it did not seem to be mobile friendly. I had to be on my computer. Am I crazy, or is it intended that way?
No, it should be, you should be able to work with it on your phone. It is intended to be flexible, if you will, for the phone and or a tablet. Obviously it works a little bit easier when you're on a computer, but it is designed to work on the phone as well.
Bob, maybe you and I could talk offline, but maybe if we could do a simulation on an iOS and see if there's an issue to resolve. I do know we have a couple members that may want mobile friendliness.
For sure. Yep. Happy to do that, for sure. Once you are, once Dr. Adams is in step 2, again, this is where Dr. Adams has the ability to upload those reflection notes and comments. So, around district leadership metrics, around, this is the, first area around communication. Here's the rubric, if start guard is not selected. Underneath each area, as well as each goal, is the ability for Dr. Adams to put in reflection notes, showing how he's meeting his goal. What he puts in is a personal preference, completely up to you. This is where he would put in supporting evidence. Again, PowerPoint, emails, links to websites, pictures, Zoom meetings, communication via Twitter or X or whatever the case may be. Dr. Adams can upload that evidence, into Super Eval, and then this is a tab that's open all year long so that Dr. Adams, throughout the course of the year, can upload evidence. And so, he's not thinking back to September, October, November, to what he did back in the beginning of the school year. This is an ongoing process that Dr. Adams has the ability to upload that evidence. And then just prior to the year-end evaluation, Dr. Adams would go ahead and rate himself on the rubric as to how he feels he did in that particular area. That's also backed up by his reflections and comments. Once that has been complete, at the end of the year, Dr. Adams goes ahead and submits that to a board review. There is a mid-year review that allows you to, any type of a check-in, how are the goals on track, are they not on track? Just for time's sake, I'm going to submit it to a year-end evaluation. Once it goes to a year-end evaluation, each one of you would get an email notification stating that Dr. Adams' year-end evaluation has been sent to you. You can tell we're on step 3. It's because the chevron's pointing to the right. You go in here. Before I go into step 3, any questions at all about or any comments about step 2, the superintendent staff evaluation?
Bob, I think this is where you and I need to talk. I think this was an issue on my end last time. If you all were getting like 3 or 4 different emails, right. I was clearly not understanding or not clicking something. What was that, November, I think? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to fix it on my end. But long story short, Bob, is they continued to get notifications that something was ready for them. And clearly I wasn't checking a box appropriately. So I do apologize. We'll get that resolved.
could have been where you were submitting it and then going back to it, but yeah, we'll definitely, we'll definitely hammer that out, no question. But once you get into super eval, you would click on to step 3 here, and up in the help section, let me show you here, there's a great help center here, and any type of issues you have, so if I put in starting an evaluation and hit search, I can go here, how do I start and continue an evaluation? When I click on that, these are articles that will, have basically snapshots and views, if you will, picture views of the actual platform along with text to help explain each step along the way. So when you log into step 3, the first thing you'll see to start the evaluation is a green square with a plus sign. Once you click on that to start the evaluation, this is what it would look like, green square next to your name here. You'll have an option. You can start the evaluation with the superintendent's rubric responses pre-populated or start from scratch. Once you've logged into Super Eval, you don't have to complete the evaluation all in one fell swoop. You can log in, log out as many times as you'd like. Once you've logged in and logged out, that green square with a plus sign now becomes a blue square with a progress chart. So that's what you will see once you start the evaluation. So when I'm back here in the live view, Dr. Andy Reed is our board president here. When I click on this blue square with the progress chart, now this is where I am in now the evaluation as the board member. I see the exact same view that Dr. Adams sees. So here's that first area around the communication. The only difference is that you have the link to the superintendent's reflections and evidence. So Mr. Patrick Mahomes is the superintendent in this particular instance. As a board member, I click on that link. I take a look at the reflections and evidence. I rate on the rubric, and then I have the ability to offer my feedback in the form of text, or I can also upload, supporting, evidence. If you wanted to show Dr. Adams an exemplar or exactly what you're looking for, this is where you have the ability to, provide, those exemplars, into Super Eval. But that is, as far as each one of you as board members, you would go in and do that. Once you've completed that part of the evaluation as the trusted agent, and so Board President Carney, you're choosing to move on to the next step in the evaluation process without having all board members completing their individual evaluation. For whatever reason, the board member falls ill, it will not hold up the process. With one click of a button, all of those comments have been collated, all of those, the ratings have been averaged, a proposed final evaluation has been created instantaneously. And so in step 4, this is where you come together as a group of board members, and how you want Dr. Adams to see the evaluation, this is where you make those edits in step 4. This data view is something that we provide. This shows, in areas of agreement between the superintendent and the board, you get a green thumbs up. This shows the superintendent's self-evaluation as compared to the board average. In some instances, it might be a little bit lower, in others, it might be a little bit higher. But this just gives you, an overall view. Is there a discrepancy, between the leadership team? Are there any blind spots? In this case, there's not. To make any edits in the evaluation, you would click on this View Consolidated Evaluation Feedback Form, go to the Edit button. You can redact names. So individual comments with names attached, individual comments with names redacted. You can make summary of the comments. If I go to Edit the Evaluation, this allows you to, click on the feedback and comments and offer, feedback to the superintendent, summarize, comments here, great job, need, to work on this type of thing. This is where you would go ahead and put that feedback. You can also change the rating on the rubric, if you will. But again, step 4 allows you that ability to create a proposed final evaluation. Once you are done with that, and I know I'm running up against it here, you would mark step complete. I want to create a proposed final evaluation. Once you go from step 4 to step 5, this will send an email to Dr. Adams. Dr. Adams now has the ability, now I'm back on the superintendent's view here. This will give Dr. Adams the ability to go into step 5, take a look at the evaluation. At this point, he can see that comparison chart. Are there any blind spots? Are we in agreement? He can take a look at the actual feedback. There's an area for post-evaluation reflections and comments. He creates a summary page for personnel, automatically creates a summary page for personnel file, if you will. There's areas for comments, general comments by the board as well as the superintendent. And then once you've had a discussion around the evaluation, Dr. Adams would sign off by signing electronically. You confirm that you and the board have discussed the evaluation. However, it does not necessarily denote an agreement with the final evaluation. Furthermore, once signed, no additional comments or changes can be made. Would you like to continue and sign? So first, Dr. Adams would sign off, then it would go to Board President Carney. He would do the same thing. Once that occurs, it would digitally archive this year's evaluation, create that summary page, and then it would start the cycle for the 25-26 school year, where you're putting in, goals for that school year. But bottom line is, again, Super Eval is really all about digitizing the self-reflective evidence-based process. Again, allowing the superintendent to help inform his board members how he's meeting those goals, allowing you the ability to go in and partake in the process more easily. Definitely want to check out that mobile issue that you were having, with Dr. Adams on that. But really just, driving a more effective, streamlining the process, making it more effective and making it more meaningful. So I know that's a lot, and I went over a little bit, but any questions at all? And just lastly, this health section is fantastic. These page tours, there's health videos. To get immediate assistance, if you go to this Contact Us section, we have a 1-844 number that will give you a live person on our help desk. You're not going to have to push any numbers. And then during school hours, this help button becomes a live chat, where you can live chat with folks on our help desk. So you can always, reach us via that way as well. But before I break, any final questions or thoughts or suggestions?
So is this set up right now for us to be able to do your evaluation for again now? Because I'm logged in under myself and it's still showing the one that we just did. We're on step 4 right now as a group, instead of it being completed and ready to go into step 1 again.
I believe I need to do something on my end, if I'm not mistaken. Bob, is that correct? To
go back to step 1.
yeah, to recycle, so to speak, back to step 1. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, so in the process, let me understand correctly, Dr. Adams, is this where there's 2 evaluations that need to happen?
Yep, this is the cycle 2 of year 2. And I'm kind of looking over Danielle's shoulder here. It looks like she's ready for a step 4 again. And if I'm not mistaken, I need to do something on my end to take them all back to step 1, I believe, right?
Yep, so what we can do is, so in step 4, as the board president, what I would do is, and Dr. Adams, we can get, we can talk tomorrow about this, but you want to create a PDF of the current evaluation that took place. So you want to create a PDF, and then you would upload that into, let me go back here, as the board president, let me go back one step here. So once you're in step 4, which you're at right now.
Yes, it shows that the step 4 is in process.
Go into step 4. Once you're in step 4, you want to create a PDF to memorialize that this cycle of the evaluation. You want to create a PDF, and you can do it, of the entire, evaluation, or you can just focus on one particular section. I'm sure you would do it on the whole entire section, generate that PDF, and then upload it. If you go to the overall evaluation tab right here, you go ahead and upload that evaluation underneath the shared document folder right here. Once you've done that, you go back to the dashboard, go back, and then just simply, you're going to click on this little blue circle with a white arrow. It'll ask you to go back to the previous step. Yes, I'm going to go back to the previous step and do it one more time so that it goes back to Dr. Adams' step 2, where Dr. Adams can now go in and continue. If I get back onto the superintendent's view now. Now I'm back on the superintendent's view. Now Dr. Adams has the ability to go into the superintendent self-evaluation to continue on with the cycle.
Okay, I'm going to repeat what I think I just heard. They're going to cycle back from 4 to 2 on their end, which then kicks it back to me. Is that correct?
Each of us or just the
That's
board
correct.
president? Okay.
Good question. So each of you needs to go kick it back from 4 to 2 to me.
Just the board president, but if we were to, I know we could do that, for the board president, but, certainly, but yes, but the board, not all board members have to do that. It's just as the trusted agent,
Oh,
the
okay.
board president holds
Good
that
question.
key to step the process back to step 2.
All right, Mr. Carney has some homework.
And then we do not need to do step 1 again. Step 1 should stay the same.
Yeah, with your blessing, I was proposing we do not change goals. I would like to keep our goals for the year.
Just the updates there.
Yep. So we would start at step 2 at this cycle.
If you look at your cycle, you're online. If you look at step 2, you are now in January, you already updated his goals through December's discussion.
Right.
And so now you're on target, you're on schedule. Next month, February 10th is our next board meeting. And by that time, we'll give you the reminders and tell you to start looking at. We'll provide you data, some of the things that you've asked for over this course of the spring. And so then by the March, you're finalizing your evaluation. We're collaborating, putting it together for you, just like we did previously. And then the plan is after the March meeting, you would come back in April and then you would sit down with Dr. Adams again and go through that same discussion as you did as a board in executive session. Here's our evaluation, here's where we scored you, and then you would go ahead and, make decisions based off of that for the next. So we're on cycle, we're on as far as this is concerned.
Yeah, it's just
I
what
know
we're
it's
seeing on
confusing,
this
yeah.
isn't.
So we just go back to
Yep.
step 2.
You
Yeah,
will,
and that's where step 2 is in January.
Okay.
yeah, I think once some system action is taken by, the trusted agent, once the trusted agent takes action, you will be kicked back to step 2.
Okay.
And Jake, let's put that in the Friday review, please. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Hartz? He and I will work on the back end on some of these more technical issues, mobile friendliness, as well as me making sure I know what to click. So my apologies for that. Anything else before I send him on his way?
Thank you, Mr. Hartz.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening and good luck the rest of the school year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay,
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Yep.
so we're, tech support. Item 6, item removed from the consent agenda.
So I had a few questions.
Okay,
Not sure who the agent is that's gonna get to answer these. I understand microfiche, I've had to work with it, with insurance. And I know machines can get testy and everything. How much storage room would you say we had right now if we continued with what we were doing? 1 year, 2, 3 more years?
So I am not the agent that will answer that question, but I can
Okay.
appreciate the storage question. Just for everybody's context, this is something I think that predates my time, certainly predates Mr. Sifford's time. it's my understanding this conversation percolated many months ago, and we have just now, I guess, brought it to you, so to speak, for official recommendation. It took a while. Maybe you might say it wasn't necessarily a priority, but nonetheless, Ryan inherited it, so I did ask him to bring it to an official finish line and an official recommendation. So for what that's worth.
So it's not much as a storage issue. It's right now the machine that reads the microfilm is currently failing. For the past couple.
Right, that was gonna be my next step,
Yeah.
but because it says in this review
Uh-huh.
that there's a storage issue, I wanted to see how much room we had
It's-
of years' worth of,
Right, so we have about 50 rolls.
Uh-huh.
So it's not really storage. It's she has them in shoe boxes, pretty much boxes underneath her desk.
so the next conversation would be a fire safe
Yes.
for storage.
Correct, yeah.
To help prevent these disasters of flood,
Yes.
fire. A fire safe would take care of that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have to get one quite as big as a bank vault because of that. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it sounds like we have storage room, we have the capability where we could get a fire safe that would prevent these things.
Yes.
That would be considerably less than the 30,000.
Yes.
So the next question is, it says, where you say it's
Mm-hmm.
failing, in here in the notes, it says that it has frequent repairs. How frequently are the repairs?
I would say at least 3 to 4 times a year. It's mainly software repairs. The machine that connects to the computer, the machine is older than the computer. So it's trying to get the compatibility between the newer operating system and the old serial interface to actually talk to each other to get it to work.
Okay, yeah, see, mine was so old, you didn't have that. You just looked through the view screen like
Oh,
a library.
Right, yeah.
So how much are these repairs approximately on average, 3 to 4 times a year? each
So for
one?
the software, we've been doing them in-house. I'm just doing Band-Aids pretty much. It's getting to the point right now where our software fixes isn't working. So we're starting to research another machine as another option.
Okay. So there is another option for a machine rather than
To
spending for Toshiba.
digitize, correct.
Okay, that would be good. I would be interested in that. And I'm gonna sit here and say why. I'm not sure how blown away anybody was about the hacking of Power School, but I consider that fairly serious. I know it did affect our district as well. That's our children's information. It's not just ours, it's our children's, and it's some of the most sensitive information out there. So depending on what they get a hold of, social security numbers or whatnot, these are our youngest people in our community with their information out there. They could be where their credit's ruined before they can even be old enough to sign for a credit card. That concerns me. And then when I went ahead and did, and this is because my husband's in this, so I get nosy sometimes. When I went and researched Toshiba, just 6 months ago, they had a huge breach. And there's a major lawsuit, there's a class action lawsuit, because they lost to entities out there. And I know there's no true way to prevent these all the time. But the fact that they're actively involved in this right now does not make me feel secure in voting confidence on them. Maybe another company that doesn't have that issue right now, but to me, they've already proven that they don't necessarily have all the safeguards that Toshiba businesses had said that they would have previously. Do you know about how much a new machine would be that would be compatible with our software?
So we haven't dove deep into it.
To it? Okay.
Just perusing around pretty much. For like the software and the machine and the connection, everything was around 10,000. But that's not us diving
Which is a
deep.
savings of $20,000 and still keeping everything in-house. And if we're talking about our budgets and security, you know, it's up to the board, but my suggestion would be to table, find out more what it is to get new equipment, keep it in-house, a fire safe, versus the cost of a company, whether it's Toshiba Business or another one that maybe doesn't have the dovetail of a lawsuit for a breach of, to me, true confidence in keeping everything secure. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we go to 7? Do we have to make a motion on that or something?
So you can make a motion, or you can give administration further direction.
What other options are?
Yep. So bring back additional research, more options, whatever you want, right? At the end of the day, I do feel that there is an obligation for us to protect the privacy, as Mrs. Murphy said. But I also want it to be something that's economically friendly as well as environmentally friendly, right? So there's several things I think that weigh into that.
And then doing it the way we do it now, how easy is it to find information, or is it time consuming to?
So I don't frequently do those type of requests.
He's coming back.
I would just suffice it to say if we're looking it up in the analog way, it's a little different than what Bob Hart's just showed you by searching it into those fields, right? So
Here he
So
is.
from speaking with Erin Sullivan, because she handles all of it at the high school, it does take a lot to find it. It's not really sorted per se. You have roles that might have a couple years, so you know where to look. But to find the exact document, you'd be scrolling the film every image, I guess.
It's like
until you
going to the
find it.
library, researching a news article from 1872. But you know you're looking for 1872 versus 1760 or 1840.
We're good? You have your direction?
I guess just requesting clarification. You want us to bring back multiple, I'm going to emphasize that, multiple alternatives. But I think we all collectively agree it's at least worthy of us pursuing additional research. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. I will work with Mr. Sifford and other appropriate personnel to bring you something possibly February or March. Sound good? Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
We're on number 7 now. Resolution.
All right. You are ready for number 7.
Yep.
Just to take everybody back in time a little bit, we started electing board members in November to align with general election. I think it's 2 cycles ago now, if I'm not mistaken. When we changed that, we also had changes to when boards could reorganize. There is now action that's required in January of you, and that action is to either reorganize in January or continue to reorganize in July. It is my recommendation you continue to reorganize in July. I think it continues to make sense for several reasons, but regardless, you need to take some action tonight. So I've got those resolutions for you. It is my recommendation you continue to reorganize in July.
I'd like to make a motion to continue to reorganize, do our reorganizational meeting in July.
I'll second.
Actually, I have resolutions to read.
Okay.
To make it all official. So there are 2 resolutions. So the first one is, I'll read it as a resolution, and then we'll take the vote, and then I'll do the second. First one is a resolution to establish election of school board officers, resolution 24/25-017. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas KSA 2019 Supplemental 72-1133 requires boards of education to elect the board president and vice president at the first meeting on or after the second Monday in January of each year, or at a later meeting date during the calendar year, if so determined by the board at that first meeting. Whereas Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, must act each year on or after the second Monday in January, or at a later meeting date during the calendar year to establish when it will elect its president and vice president. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of Unified School District 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, will elect its school board president and vice president at its first meeting of the Board of Education in July of 2025.
Second.
So a motion for the July meeting. He seconded it? All in favor?
Aye.
6-1? Is there a reason why you didn't vote for that? Just curious.
I think we should have new board leadership beginning this month.
Okay.
Okay, this next resolution is a resolution to establish the board's regular meeting dates for resolution 24/25-018. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas KSA 72-1138 requires boards of education at the first meeting on or after the second Monday in January, or at a later date during the calendar year, if so determined by the board at that first meeting, to adopt a resolution to establish its regular board meeting dates, times, and location, as well as the alternate date and time of any meeting if the regular meeting date falls on a Sunday or a holiday. Whereas the Board of Education must act each year on or after the second Monday in January and before February 1st of each year, or at a later date during the calendar year, to establish its meeting dates, times, and location. Whereas the Board of Education must act each year on or after the second Monday in January and before February 1st of each year, or at a later date during the calendar year to establish its meeting dates, times, and location. Be it resolved pursuant to KSA 2019 Supplemental 72-1138 that the Board of Education of Unified School District Number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, at its meeting on January 13th, 2025, does hereby adopt this resolution to establish the day of the week of the month, time, and location for regular Board of Education meetings and any alternative meeting dates to be held during the 25-26 school year at its July 2025 board meeting. That's it.
Second.
Was that a second motion? Oh, okay. Everybody understand? All in favor?
To clarify, oh, did you have a
Yes.
question?
Yeah.
You can still establish them in July. So until I'm told otherwise, I'm going to still recommend the first or second Monday of the month, right? But you have until July to make that decision. So I thought I saw maybe a question you had. Sorry.
I got it.
Okay, so the vote again, aye, 6-1 again, okay, next.
I'm going to remind everyone to come by and sign the resolutions for each department tonight.
And blue
Teach-
ink.
Strategic
Whichever
plan,
pen you send me gives me.
strategic plan update.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. All right. Going along with our cadence of bringing the strategic plan to a regular and consistent highlight, we're going to have a first semester overview of the CHAMPS integration and what we've done here with Safe and Civil Schools. None other than Dr. Rebecca Varvel, who's led a lot of this work, and really appreciate everything that she's done. So, Dr. Varvel, take it away, please.
Thank you guys for your time tonight. So just want to give you guys a brief update. Super excited about our data. It is showing a lot of success. So just want to take you through where we started and where we're at. So based on our strategic plan, our behavior management protocols are addressing two specific strategic plan pieces, the student engagement and support, as well as staffing and personnel. So this document probably looks familiar to you from last year. This was kind of our outline of where we started and where we're headed. So if you remember, in October through December, Dr. Adams went around to all of the different buildings and got staff concerns and did his walkthroughs. And one of the big pieces that came out from that was student behavior. Everybody was concerned with student behavior and behavior management. And so we wanted to be able to address that. That was also addressed within the strategic plan. So in January, we developed our student behavior task force, which was developed with 31 different staff members, primarily teachers, to tackle this concern. We then moved on into April, where you guys approved the use of Safe and Civil Schools. And then we began our training and implementation. And so we are just giving you an update tonight of where our semester one results are and then where we are moving forward. So like I said, our task force was made up of 31 staff members, primarily teachers. We are bringing that staff back together again in this month, and we've actually added 3 additional teachers to that to continue to bolster that. And then any staff members that left, most of them returned, but any staff members that left, we did replace with coexisting staff members. So we came together with our task force with 3 primary goals. The first one was to review and adopt a unified evidence-based classroom management methodology for this school year. And so the status of that is that's been completed. We adopted the Safe and Civil Schools, primarily CHAMPS and Discipline in Secondary Classroom, which was those classroom-based behavior strategies and classroom management. So right now, every teacher should have a comprehensive classroom management plan that they're well-versed in, that's continually reviewed and updated as they see fit with their class. Every teacher should have CHAMPS implemented in their classrooms. They should have those visuals available, and there should be a fluid application of that STOIC model, which is those structures, the teaching of those things, observations in my classroom, positive interactions with students, and then correcting misbehaviors fluently. So right now, based on 157 walkthroughs during semester one, we are currently at 73.2% implementation. So what that means is when we go into classrooms, are we implementing the things that we said we're going to implement? We have classrooms that are flying high and they have 100% every time we go in. We have some teachers that are struggling and we're offering supports to those teachers. Some are coming to us and saying, hey, can you help me with a specific student or the specific piece of it? And we are there to support them the whole way through. We also did some feedback surveys with the staff for the training that they did receive through Safe and Civil Schools. And so if you remember right, so CHAMPS is elementary intermediate, Discipline Secondary Classroom is that secondary branch. So our elementary intermediate teachers said that 92% of them said that this training was good or excellent, and 83% of them would recommend training somebody that wasn't trained with that trainer and the content. And then our secondary staff rated it as 88% being good or excellent, and then 73% recommended that training to a colleague. The second goal that we had for the task force was to develop a tiered response system for common behaviors. So we developed a behavior matrix. We shared that out with you guys at the beginning of the school year that lists out about 75 common behaviors that all staff had identified that they had dealt with. And then within that, we also identified then what is our staff response. So is this a mild, moderate, or severe behavior? Mild being I can deal with that in my classroom until it becomes to the point that it rises to an administrator who needs to support me. Moderate being, hey, I need support in my classroom, but I can manage this right at the moment, but I'm going to need an administrator to come support at some point. And then severe being like, I need you right here on the spot, like something so severe that I can't deal with that right now. It also lays out how do we respond with strategics. So, for example, a fight in the hallway, I might be clicking my badge to let somebody know, like, I'm going to need help right now because I can't obviously put a referral in and I'm not going to go find an administrator. I need you to come now. Whereas, like, kiddo is gossiping, I'll need to push my strategics badge for that. And then it also outlines our common communication protocols so we can make sure we're on the same page amongst all the buildings. So it would say, for example, if there was a student brought a weapon on grounds, who's notifying? Is that the administrator is notifying the building? Or is a teacher notifying if there was a medical emergency in the classroom? Or is a teacher notifying that your child has gotten in trouble? So it outlines who's responsible for communication and to what level is that communication happening. And then we also built in a corresponding what we call behavior management playbook. So for every one of those behaviors that are outlined, a teacher can click on that behavior and it will bring up a separate one-pager that lists what is that behavior. And then it gives a list of anywhere between 5 to 15 strategies, interventions, ideas that the teacher can utilize to try to help support that kiddo versus me having to go out and try to figure it out on my own. We really wanted to try to build that support in for teachers, which also then helped within our SIT teams. Because then the teacher can say, I've tried all of these things and I don't know what else to do. Or they can say, hey, have you tried these things? And it gives them that resource to be able to pull from. And then the last goal that we had with the task force was identifying supports needed for staff and students to be able to be supported. And one of the things that came out with this was we had a lot of students that were staying in the office for long periods of time and not being able to get addressed because we were waiting on paper referrals to come into the office, or referrals were getting lost and then kids never got handled because the referrals weren't there, et cetera. And teachers felt like they needed something to help streamline those processes. So we adopted that Kickboard Office Referral and PBIS program, and it's all centralized around our behavior matrix. So any of the behaviors that are in that system directly correlate with what's on our behavior matrix. And all it takes is 2 clicks to document there's a behavior in my classroom, and then there's a 3rd click if you want to actually submit a referral to the administrator to say, hey, I need some help with this kiddo. It's also allowed us to be able to streamline that communication between admin and staff, which is something we had heard from teaching staff was oftentimes the kid comes back and I have no idea what happened. Now the administrator can type in like called home, talk to the student, we did a restorative circle, whatever it is, and send that, and now the teacher gets that immediate feedback of what actually happened with that student, and if there's any other follow-up information that needs to happen. It's allowed for our intervention teams to be able to do more robust things with their data. And then it's also replaced that obsolete programming and or paper pencil types of things that we were doing with referrals. So the exciting part, let's go over some results. This would not be possible without our staff being able to implement the things that we've been doing and by them providing us feedback when they are struggling so that we can help support them as needed. So the first thing is our office referrals. And so referrals are any instance of a teacher, an administrator, or a staff member reporting a behavior concern. So it's important to remember that this could be the teacher. It could be, let's say that my system's down and I call an administrator to help and I haven't put that referral in. Our administrators are still documenting that information in the system. It's not, that data doesn't just go away. It's still documented in the system. Our paraprofessional staff, building aides, et cetera, can record that data in Kickboard. And so when we look at that, we are currently at a 32.9% decrease from this time last year to this year. Also just want to hone in on that. We are comparing apple to apple because we're looking at the same number of weeks and same number of days. So this is not comparing end of year data to current data. This is truly apple to apple comparisons. When we look at our incidents, so incidents are going to be any instance of an ISS, so out of school, or in-school suspension, or OSS, because kids are not learning at that time. And so we are also 32.9% down from this time last year. So super excited about that information as well. And you can see that some of our buildings, when you look at that breakdown, for example, Rachel Warren Middle School is down over 50%. So we're super excited. We have some buildings that are just making huge gains. And then we look at days of suspension. And this one I'm really excited about because not only have we decreased the number of times that kids are getting suspended, we're decreasing the number of days they're out of school. So we've actually decreased the number of suspension days by 53%. So when you look at those numbers, we have more kids in seats learning than we had this time last year. I also know that sometimes we get questions about repeat offenders. How many times are the same kids acting up in class? And so I ran that data as well. So when you look at our student body as a whole, our whole population, 8.9% of our students have received a suspension this school year. Of those kids, so when you look at our student body, 4.2% of our student body has received 2 or more. So those would be your repeat offenders. So now take that subset of data. So my pocket of kids that have received 1 or more suspensions, of my kids that have received at least 1 suspension or more, 47% of those students have received 2 or more suspensions. So our repeat offenders is almost 50%. So when we look at data and when we look at, why don't we suspend kids more, I think that does speak to suspension oftentimes doesn't solve the problem, as if it did, our repeat offender data would not be as high as it is. We also looked at our students with disabilities, and so other students that have been suspended, 28% of those students are identified with a disability with special education services, and 71% are identified or not identified with a disability. The great thing about that is we are decreasing the number of students that are being suspended with disabilities. We still have work to do. That number should be hovering more around 5 to 10%, but we have made great strides because we typically hover around 40 to 50%. So we are excited about that as well.
On that one, I have a question. If you guys can look at with that one, like the kids that actually can, like, I know for a certain level they could be kicked out, but like because of their IEP, they are not, like, we're really, really not trying to kick them out.
Okay.
Can you look at that and also bring that data back?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, we sure can. We also collected data on what we call the basic 5 behavior benchmarks. And so we have our baseline data from last year and then our data from this year. And so these are the 5 behaviors that if we see these things, all what we call level 1, which is what we want to see, then we have created a positive environment for learning. So when we look at time on task, what we're looking for is 90% or more students in a classroom are on task. And so we've actually had a 126% increase in our level 1 behaviors from this time last year. Our opportunities to respond is during a 10-minute window of time, our teachers and students engaging back and forth with a minimum of 40 interactions. And so we've had a 137% increase with that. Our ratio of interactions, so my 3 to 1, 3 positives for every 1 corrective is what our goal is. We've increased that by 20.7%. Our disruptions would be, is there 5 or less disruptions during a 10-minute window of time, and we have increased the ability to decrease those disruptions by 18%. And then the last one is alignment with expectations. So if whatever my rules are in my classroom, are the kids following what the rules say? And we've increased that by 83%. So once again, we've increased the culture in the classroom, and we've increased the ability for kids to learn. And once again, this is the hard work of the teachers that are paying off, and we're seeing that. Just a couple additional statistics here just to try to kind of realize the impact of what we're doing. So when you consider that a kid that has a suspension is not learning, that's learning time that's lost because they're not in a seat actually learning content. Last year at this time, we lost almost 48,000 hours of instructional time with those kiddos. This year, we're at 22,000. Obviously, still lots of work to do, but you can see that's a significant improvement from where we were last year. And then also the interactions lost. So research would show that at minimum, kids have about 80 interactions per school day, at minimum. So that's me walking and talking with teachers, administrators, to my friends, learning social interactions, etc. When kids aren't learning in seats, they're not getting those interactions because they're sitting at home or they're sitting in ISS, once again, silent, not learning, not doing any of those types of things, right? So last year at this time, we had lost about 546,000 interactions, whereas right now we're sitting at that 254,000 mark. So once again, we have a lot of room to grow, but we have made a huge stride in the right direction for our kids. And then I wanted to try to put something together to kind of help manage a cost impact. So when you see this, and because I know we're talking a lot of things about budget, I want to emphasize this is not money saved as in like this is money we can include back in the budget. This is going to be a perceived savings. So when I think about this, and I think about it costs $54 a day to keep a kid in a seat. If the kid sits at home, the taxpayer still spends $54 for that seat that then is not filled. So as a taxpayer, if your kid, the kid I'm sponsoring, I'm called sponsoring, is sitting at home, my money is still going to the school for an empty seat. When I really want to be paying for the kid to be getting an education in the classroom. So that's kind of the way I think of that. And so when I compare last year's data where we were at compared to this year, we've actually saved about $176,000 in getting our education. Like the money I spent towards education is actually being spent in the right direction. So if you think of it kind of like, if I go to the movies and I bought a movie ticket for me and my son, and my son has a breakdown in the middle of the movies and I have to leave, I don't get a refund for that. The movie theater still got to keep that money, right? They didn't gain anything extra. They didn't lose anything, but I lost out on a learning opportunity with my kid in the movie theater, right? So think of it in the same way. So if I can teach my kiddo to not have a breakdown in the middle of the movie, then I get the experience of getting that, and I'm not out that money. So you kind of got to think of it in that terms. So like I said, I just want to emphasize, it's not that $176,000 goes back into our coffers, but that $176,000 is money that taxpayers have spent that now is actually the education is actually happening for that kiddo, if that makes sense. And so when we think of the investment we made for this first year was $80,000, we've well exceeded that, and that's just the first semester. So our next steps, where are we heading? We've done a lot this semester. Our teachers have been through a lot. We've got one of our task members sitting back here. She's done an amazing job. Where are we going now? So we're going to continue the work. So in January 29th of this year, our task force is going to come together with our key set accreditation team. We're going to go over our data, talk about things that are going well, our roadblocks, things that maybe we need to look at enhancing, and then do we need to adjust any of our goals and kind of where are we heading from there. We also, for the rest of this semester, we'll be working with our administration teams to start working on building what we call a school-wide behavior plan. So we've really focused in on student behaviors and teacher classroom management. We'll continue to do that. But now we're really looking at systems in the building and making sure we have good systems in place for dealing with behaviors and making sure everybody is on board with how we handle things in the building. So we'll be working on those so that every building has their school-wide behavior plan that then they can push out to the community, to families, to their internally to their teams, etc. We're going to continue to provide PD on our safe and civil schools, and our teachers are using the data and our administrators are using data now to be able to identify, I'm really struggling with X, can we do PD on this? Example of that is Anthony Elementary has identified that they are having a lot of students that they're catching sleeping in class. So when February comes around to PD, we're going to be doing a small mini PD on why is sleeping occurring and how can we eliminate that from our classrooms and how can we handle that? Because teachers have done what they know to do, now we don't know what else to do, so we're going to provide them some strategies to try to help support that. And then we're going to continue to look at that data. So the data that you guys have seen today, we run that on a constant basis and talk about that every week in cabinet at the district level, as well as when we have our administrators, and then we are meeting with our administrators monthly and we're talking through that as well. And then from there, our task force is getting this information, once again, just to keep the data and making sure that we're watching for trends, making sure we're trending in a positive direction, and if any chance we hit a roadblock, we can quickly pivot versus waiting to the end of the year to pivot. And then in June of 2025, we will come back to this. We'll go over a year one summary of where we've been, where we're at now, and then where we're heading again. Any questions about any of that information? Yes, ma'am.
Let me think how to ask this. Okay, comparing this year for this time last year, I understand how you get the numbers for office referrals and suspensions, but I'm looking at some of the like opportunities to respond, ratio of interactions. How were we collecting that data a year ago to compare it to what we're doing now?
Great question. So what I do is, so if we're assuming that we have a 7-hour instructional day, I simply took the number of days that got suspension last year times 7. That gave me that 47,778. And I take right now the number of days of suspension we have times that 7, and that gave me the 22,270. The same thing with your opportunities to respond, or your opportunities, for interactions. Once again, number of days of suspension times 80, and then same thing for this year, number of days of suspension times 80, and that's where those two numbers came from. So when I look at, for example, let me go back here. Okay, so this days of suspension, for example, right now this year we're at 3,181 days. So for learning loss, I take that number times 7. And then I look at last year, we were at 6,825 days of suspension, so I take that times 7. And that's your comparison.
Number of days should theoretically be almost the same.
Yes, yes. Does that help?
A little bit.
Okay. Anything else?
I really appreciate the time you took to give us the individual breakdown as well of the repeat offenders, because it's always bothered me to think that there's, 3,000 students out there that are doing it.
Right.
And that's clearly not what we have.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a small percentage of students, and of those students, we definitely have some work to do. So, I'm encouraged. So, thank you.
Our teachers have done an amazing job. Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else?
Okay,
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
I still don't exactly understand. I'm looking at the basic 5 behavior benchmarks. Take like alignment with expectations, and you got an 83.5 increase in level 1 behavior. I guess.
Yep, so if you look here on that chart, right below that, you'll see alignment to expectations. Our baseline was 47%. That's where we were last year. So of the classrooms we went into,
And that was calculated by the formula that you were talking about number of days of suspension.
no,
and-
that has nothing to do with this.
That's, I guess
Yes.
that.
Yep, this is a totally
my
different
question.
measure, yes.
Okay, this
So,
is my
yep,
question.
this is a different measure. So these measures, if you see that white box up here, and I can send this out to you guys as well, just so you have a bigger copy of that. So this is the behavior, basic 5 behavior benchmarks. So we look at 5 different key qualities that we want to see in a classroom in order to determine is good quality instruction happening, is it a good classroom environment. So what we're looking for is that time on task, opportunities to respond, ratio of interactions, disruptions, and then alignment with expectations. And you don't have to track all those at the same time. So when I go in and do a walkthrough, I may be looking at, if a teacher's doing small group instruction, that would not align with me looking at opportunities to respond, because that's only during direct instruction. So I'm not tracking that for that
So
observation.
you're getting these numbers by your walkthrough?
Yes, yep,
Okay,
these are
so
strictly
this is
walkthrough
not-
data, yep. And then what we encourage teachers to do is this individual tool can then be utilized by them. So I know that was one of your concerns in the past has been how much data are we asking them to collect. So this is where we kind of ask them to utilize this tool for themselves. So I'm not asking a teacher to track all this all at once, but I might be looking at my data and going, you know what? Not only are my kids not making progress, but they're struggling a little bit with their behavior. So I want to really focus in on what is my ratio of interaction. So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to track my data, and then I'm going to look at where does that fall on my chart. And that's the data that I've collected, and then as a teacher, I can decide whether, yep, you know what, I'm in the green, that's not a concern, I need to try something else, or holy smokes, I was in the red, I need to assess what I'm doing as a teacher. But this data here is coming strictly from our walkthroughs that are done by our administrators, myself, Dr. Rettelberger, Ms. Batson, et cetera, going in classrooms, and we're collecting that, and it goes right back to the teacher. So nothing is secret to them. We provide that feedback right back to them, so that way then they can see exactly where they scored on it, and then some of the teachers sometimes will respond back and say, what can I do better, or thank you for this was really insightful, and we provide that feedback of what went really well, and then here's some things that you can work on.
So your method of collecting that information is the same as it
Yes.
was? So
Yes.
it's the walkthrough
Yes.
and the
Absolutely.
observation? Okay.
Yep, so this would
That's
be
what I was
based off of
getting at,
walk.
because I know we have like a whole part of Power School now that.
Yeah, so
that
that
you
part's
can-
referrals. So
that
Power
you can
School
do
will be
okay.
referrals, and your incidents. That's pulled out of Power School. This is pulled directly up from walkthroughs that we're doing in the
Observation.
classrooms.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I would say we have both. I would say we have both objective data as well as anecdotal data feeding into this. Does that help, Mrs. Overby?
Thank you for the slides there. I don't think it was an issue with seeing it or anything. We have a good, it's good.
Awesome, fantastic. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you, Dr. Varble.
Okay, superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. I have a total of 3 items here for you tonight. The first of which is probably the topic that's being talked about the most frequently, which is an update on our budget situation. So Mr. Sifford, if let's give him maybe a 200% there or more. These eyes aren't as young as they used to be. Thank you. All right, tonight is intended to be a status update. So where are we at as of January 13th? Going back in time, just to build some contextual background, we are looking at a total of $5 million in round numbers. Half of that is due to the loss of student enrollment. So physically less students will be enrolled in this school district next year. Remember, you're always using the higher of either the prior school year or current school year, okay? The second of that second of that 5, the other 2.5 is what we would consider to be projected expenditure increases. Examples of that: health insurance, property insurance, etc. The grand total we're working with is $5 million. The two sections we've broken it down to, just like any regular old balance sheet, is your revenue and your expenses. You will see one here with a caveat, and that is in the Carolina blue, sky blue, whatever, and that is the impact aid, because that process is not finalized yet. So this is kind of newer for us. Remember, these are federal dollars flowing to us for our federally connected students, and Mrs. Maddox and company feel that 200 is the appropriate floor from that. So I'd always rather under-promise, over-deliver here. We do believe it has the potential to go up, but for now we are comfortable listing 200,000. The other one there is directly tied to the Kansas school finance formula. So insofar that the necessary steps happen in Topeka, which I have no reason to believe they won't, then you would have the projected new revenue there. So let's talk at where we found the rest. And it's all really in reduction of current operating expenditures. You're going to see the broader categories with, I would argue, total dollars as of today. You might ask, why is that as of today? An example I can give you is one of our employment classifications. If more positions, separations come in, and we decide not to fill those positions, that number would update. So these numbers represent separations that we know as of tonight. You'll see, obviously, the broader categories, some of which are smaller in nature, but I'm going to hit on a couple of these. Administrative staff would be reduced by 3.5 FTE, so that represents an 8 and change % reduction in the overall FTE there. That's, again, across the district. Just to be clear, that includes both building and district administration. Certified staff is across all buildings. That total is at 22 and change. Classified, again, within all departments. You do have a couple staff that are affected by what's called WAR, working after retirement, and then you will see Beth and I are comfortable with spending down some of our cash balance. I would not recommend you spend all of your cash balance down. So the bottom line is that as of January 13th, you have found just under $3 million, and you've got 1.2 left to find of the 5 million. So you might say we are almost 80% the way there. What questions can I answer initially on this?
By reducing the new teacher academy days, what are we hoping, what content are we not going to be giving them by removing days?
I'm going to let Mrs. Batson speak about the specifics. In broad numbers, we have 4 days in new teacher academy. It will go to 3.
And we're going to reduce that to 3. On Tuesdays, traditionally, we do a rotation of more logistical type topics that we do, and we're going to work on getting those into like on-demand video type resources. So teachers, when we're talking about logging into systems, practicing that, we'll have minimal time. We won't have whole sessions for that on there. That's where we're going to capture that time.
Thank you, Mrs. Wells.
Reducing subscriptions, so we're just, we're gonna see less action on that, or request to renew?
Yep.
Or how is that?
Theoretically, anything over 20,000 that would have come to you would not come to you if we decide to cut that. I believe most of these are under that, so we would not have them on the list of warrants. So I'll let Mr. Bodensteiner add to
Are there
that.
some things that we could continue on with not the latest subscription, like it hasn't changed that much? I mean, or we have to, it doesn't work that way?
Oh, no, so these would not be textbooks per se, these are like online accesses to platforms. So one that we would not be getting rid of, because we need it for state requirements, is Edpuzzle for our department, because that's how we do our dyslexia trainings in a flipped model. So it's access to these platforms. Another one that would be under consideration is Pear Deck, that allows teachers to add some interactive elements to slide deck presentations they do. So it's those kind of subscriptions, not like a
Okay.
core resource textbook.
So not like curriculum?
No, not, it's
Subscription.
more supplemental, is how I would describe it. So we kind of did an analysis and looked at what's a must-have because of either it connects to a state requirement, like Edpuzzle for dyslexia training, and what's it has benefit, we like it, but what's a nice-to-have sort of conversation.
Do some of those subscriptions like overlap? We have any redundancy there that?
Not much at this point. We've, in the years Ms. Batts and I have been in these positions, we've actually kind of trimmed over the years because every year about this time, February, March, we look at usage reports and then get feedback from our building admin and leadership. And so we've actually done some trimming and piecemealing over the years. This is just a little more aggressive in terms of we'd like to have it, but given the realities of the budget, we're making that decision. Thank you.
I'm not necessarily speaking against this, but I do just want to point out that by eliminating the chamber bucks, we're not only hurting our staff by having that extra money around the holiday time, but we're also going to economically impact the city for the businesses to not receive those expected funds as well.
Noted.
My understanding was that many of those didn't get utilized for whatever reason.
Do we track that?
Yes, I'm not aware of that concern. The other thing is how many are still sitting there just waiting to be used. My wife and I are a good example of that. We might wait till March to use ours, right? So, but I do want to acknowledge we did discuss those concerns. This will have an economic impact on your local businesses. I fully acknowledge that. Any other questions?
How did you single out the chamber bucks as an item that needed to be in this package?
I would not say anything was singled out. This list probably came from a list of significantly more. What we attempted to do with this entire list, 1, minimize the impact to the classroom. 2, stick true to our word that we said, which I'm going to reestablish here. We are not going to get here through reduction in force. We were not going to pink slip staff throughout the process. And I am still steadfast on that commitment. And then 3 is what is, I would argue, the want versus need conversation, similar to what Mr. Bodensteiner just talked about on the subscriptions. We determined that the chamber bucks is more of a want versus a need at the current time frame.
Plus, by the time the holidays come around again, there could be other changes for the positive that we could self-reflect and re-amend that.
That is accurate.
It's not like it's all set in stone and there couldn't be a possibility for something else. It might not be 50 a person, it might be 25 a person. But it just doesn't mean everything's dead in the water now.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Murphy. I want to emphasize, just because something is cut here does not mean it could not be added back later. And that is true with chamber bucks or anything else for that matter. So there is no finality to this. But
One
we'll,
good yard sale could fix it all.
but we do want to bring that net number to 0, certainly by June 30th, but arguably earlier. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, moving on.
All right. So this kind of feeds into a second item. Earlier today, some of our key staff were notified. As you know, many tough decisions are resulting from this, but I believe there's also opportunities as well. And I wanted to unveil, if you will, publicly, one of those decisions that's been made, and that is the program relocation for Nettie Hartnett. And I want to emphasize the reasons why we're doing this and then talk through next steps. 1, firmly and foundationally, I believe the kids of Nettie deserve a better environment. And I believe the staff of Nettie also deserve a better environment. Okay? There is a student experience that is unfortunately not like some of our other buildings and not in a good way. I only need to go back to last week and the temperatures that were less than desirable for those students. Okay? Number 2, the building is in dire need of significant repair. I cannot make that recommendation to invest those dollars at this time. In addition to the major projects, you've also then got the smaller, more immediate maintenance that is also draining us operationally. And then 3, obviously within the context of our overall budget situation, this does provide for operational savings. So think you're going to insure one less building, you're going to heat one less building. You guys get the idea. There is some staff reduction. Long story short, I am authorizing the program relocation of the Nettie Hartnett programs effective with August of 2025. Staff at Nettie were notified earlier this week, or actually probably technically today, as well as the staff at Intermediate. You may be wondering, where are they going? I've got that ready to go. Maybe, Mr. Sifford, thank you. We will be heading to the Intermediate Center and specifically Suite 2. So I'll start one slide back for kind of the zoomed out version. There you go. So that is Suite number 2 at Nettie Hartnett, at the Intermediate Center. Now let's zoom in. And those programs would land there. There's 2 caveats. The first caveat is the archive room. I've assigned that to Mrs. Sloan to determine where it goes. We don't necessarily need it to go to the Intermediate Center. And the second of which is our virtual program, and that's been assigned to Mr. Potter. Both those programs will still continue. It's just a matter of where they will be located. So those programs would be effectively relocated over the summer semester, so that gives the intermediate staff, Nettie staff, all of second semester to figure out all those details at their level, at the building level. You'll have operational savings with the reduction of staff, the reduction of the heating. You'll also have the savings from what I would call the Band-Aids and bubble gum, all the various fixes that you need to do throughout the year. You'll also avoid all the large capital expenditures that I believe that building has needed, probably many of which are past overdue.
What's your timeline?
So I would say the timeline would be to move as early as possible in June, as late as possible in July. I realize and fully appreciate that I'm creating a disruption for staff. And I apologize in advance for that, but some staff will be disrupted. So the earlier we can notify them and the earlier we can help them get reestablished in their new digs, the better I think it is for everybody.
So who is being moved out of Suite 2? What is that currently housed?
This is 6th grade specifically. I'm looking to Mrs. Batson to confirm, right? I don't have a list of those teachers, I'm sorry, but it would be some of our 6th grade staff and some of our 6th grade students.
And so we're going to be introducing onto the 5-6 side now students up to the age of 21.
Looking for Kathy. Yep, thank you. I want to emphasize something that's really small on the page, but it's a big deal, and it is that blue line. There is the plan to include a secured entrance here. So I think of it as a school within a school. That would effectively, if you will, create that clear separation, that clear boundary between those specialized programs and the west side of the building. Go ahead, Kath.
We have, all those programs currently exist with one another as it is.
Right.
So you have first grade through age 21
Right.
in one location. Now we're relocating that to this section of the intermediate school. So all those programs stay together.
How quickly could we have the security door in place? Have we bidded on that, or?
We have not. I have reason to believe we can definitely get that work done immediately after school is out and prior to the start of school.
Okay.
That's why we are announcing this tonight, so we can make plans like that, right? Go ahead, Karen, sorry.
Will we be receiving more briefs on the progress of this, or how exactly it's coming along?
Absolutely.
Because I'd be really interested in that. And I want to thank you for not putting Quest back at the high school. That was something that was really important to me, because it kind of defeats the purpose of graduating and going back to the high school. And I like the idea of it being, making sure that we're completely separate.
I will emphasize this is the building that has lost the largest number of students. So if you're worried about the congestion, this is the building that experienced that, specifically in those 5th and 6th grade classes. Total affected students is right around 30. Staff FTE is in the neighborhood of 15. Is that accurate? Okay. All right, so no action tonight. I'm more than okay with regular updates. Some may be lighter than others. But action would likely be coming to a board table near you when we start to talk about the future of the building. So I do not have the authority to close a building, to sell a building, any of that. We don't need to have those conversations tonight necessarily, but this is effectively step one, which is the reprogramming, relocation of those programs. Any other questions I can answer at this time? All right, so our NETI staff found out earlier today. Our IC staff found out. If people are not watching, they will find out. Affected parents and staff will find out as early as tomorrow afternoon, possibly even tomorrow morning, whenever Mr. Potter can get that out.
So what's the difference in staffing?
As far as, sorry, making sure I'm understanding your question.
Are we losing any staff moving the program?
Correct. You will have some positions, not people. I want to emphasize that. The people will stay, but you will have FTE that we effectively close. Those individuals keep a job insofar that they're willing to accept the transfer. I want to make that caveat clear.
I just wanted to reemphasize that. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else on that one? And my final piece. I know I've spoken too long. I'm getting the hook.
It's okay, Patrick.
Thank you. If you're not aware, January is School Board Appreciation Month. And I just want to personally say thank you to each and every one of you. You all bring unique skills, talents, and abilities to this board. And I am truly thankful for the opportunity to work for you. So if you are listening online, staff, if you hear this later, please take a moment to say thank you, send a thank you. These people serve entirely as volunteers, and they do it, I would argue quite well, and oftentimes under a high level of scrutiny. So each one of you, I just wanted to say thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Carney.
Okay, 10-1, upcoming meeting dates. Do I need to read these, or can everybody figure that out?
It looks like we have one, sorry.
We do?
I'm happy to read them all. I know you all can read. The one I want to emphasize is January 27th.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks from tonight, 5:30, work session only. I want to emphasize that. It's entirely devoted to kind of these final steps as we bring this budget scenario hopefully closer to an end. If you have suggestions on how I can make that night meaningful and otherwise productive, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to send those to me. Karen, I know you've already reached out, so thank you for that. But I want to make the night meaningful for you. So go ahead, Judy. Sorry.
We've talked about it before, so I'll circle back.
Thank you. I don't need to read the rest of the dates unless you all do. So
Okay, so I guess we have a speaker, Mrs. Mueller.
I don't need any introduction anymore, I don't think. But if you're watching at home, I'm Sharon Miller, and I'm the LNEA president. First and foremost, a Happy New Year, and we wanted to give a big shout out of thanks to our maintenance and grounds crews for all the hard work that they did this past week. You know, anytime you were out and about in town, we'd see them working away at the schools, and so thank you to all of those people. With regards to kickboard, I think this may be an issue that we'll need to talk about further collectively. Some of the concerns that teachers have brought up, I think, continue to exist with kickboard. And so I think I'm going to email you all and Dr. Adams to talk about that. But I don't know that if all the staff, support staff, have access to kickboard. I don't believe that's the case, one. And two, when teachers are working in their classroom, this is what they're working with. And it's a really big Chromebook. And it's hard, I think, especially for our elementary teachers, to be down on the ground or walking around with, 22 kids holding this open and trying to keep track of data with kickboard. So that's an issue that we're continuing to work with. The third thing with kickboard that we are still struggling with is a lag in our Wi-Fi. So when we want to have fidelity of the program to keep it timely, and so we're still continuing to work on that. And I know admin is going to help us with that, but we do see an improvement in behaviors, and that's excellent. But we still have some kinks to work out with kickboard, and I know we'll be working with you guys on that. So, and lastly, with in regards to NETI, yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces, but
it's what we have to do, and we'll be working with you guys and everybody to get it done. So, thanks.
Thank you. And guess we're down to board comments, huh? Board comments. Ms. Murphy?
I'll start off with Saturday. I was able to attend the JROTC celebration dinner for being 6-time national champions. It was really great to see all the parents, coaches, community members, military support systems from the fort and outside the fort, from a lot of the JROTC instructors from many of the colleges there to congratulate and celebrate their accolades, but they're also helping these kids live their dreams to do further military, college and military service. So that was really great to see. I want to thank all the coaches, the staff, families, teachers, I mean, everyone just on a daily basis, not just for going to the event, but that are there with them all along like they are with everything else they do within the schools in supporting the kids, because none of the kids in any of the programs can do it without all those hands. So thank you. I want to thank you for the lovely dinner this evening from Chartwell's. It was very delicious. I'm sorry the rest of you all missed it. Thank you. If Chartwell's caters, didn't they mention they do catering?
They do, yes.
Yeah,
There's
so-
a request process and all that, but short answer is yes.
Right, so they do catering. So we had beef fillet, and we had mashed potatoes and glazed carrots, and then the dessert was a deconstructed tiramisu with the bottom layer being a peppermint and the middle layer being a lavender blueberry and the top layer mocha, and then it had the shards of the fired sugar. And if you're looking for things like that to have catered, you need to call them. I mean, they're here to be part of the community as well. So if you need some catering, you might as well reach out to them. You just don't want to miss those opportunities that you have. And thank you, like Mrs. Mueller said, for all of our people who keep all our sidewalks clear, our parking lots clear, so our kiddos and staff are all getting in and out of the building safely. And the problem with the water at the high school, how long did that end up taking to get fixed?
I was notified at 8 o'clock a.m., and by 5 o'clock p.m., we were entirely back online.
Very good.
So
So within a day, which I know that's really inconvenient, but, you know, it's great to know that things can be handled in a quick manner. Can't say that it would have been cheap manner, but things happen. So, yeah, I hope everybody had wonderful holidays, and I hope you all have a wonderful new year. Thank you.
Ms. Wells?
I just want to publicly apologize for not being in attendance last month. I became ill very suddenly and unexpectedly. It didn't last long. I am fine, but I was not prepared to not be here, or else I would have prepared to Zoom and do all that. That was not a fun 24 hours for me. And then I just ask for the community's help in being able to keep our schools open and get our kids to school safely. Clear your sidewalks if you can. If you can't, please help clear your neighbors. Like, let's look out for ourselves and our kids. Our kids are walking in the road to try to get to school, and it's not safe, and we need them at school. So please, everybody, let's help. That's it.
Ms. Reed?
I was not at dinner. Was that something that was donated by Chartwell's, or was that a district expense?
That will represent a district expense, correct?
I was, however, at the Senate floor in Topeka, and I was extremely ecstatic to witness the swearing in of Senator Klemp. And one of the things that is going to potentially be something the legislators have to decide on this year is going to be school choice. I'm not really too worried about it because the bills that were presented last year were so underwhelming that I don't think that it has any momentum. But that being said, I always like to be prepared as much as possible. So if LNEA, if any staff whatsoever that work in the district in any capacity, any parents, obviously, most likely it would be presented as a parent's choice bill. So, but I just welcome your feedback. And, you know, obviously would communicate that with the legislators that I have an open communication with. Thanks so much.
I just want to say Happy New Year's. Hope everybody is staying warm and safe. And I know we don't love the snow days when the kids have to be canceled, but I enjoyed them with mine. So I hope you guys did. Kids stay safe. And we hope that everybody continues to have a good winter and a safe winter. So take care and have a good night.
Mrs. Overby?
I think everybody covered just about everything. But I want to thank my fellow board members for serving, since it is Board Appreciation Month. Thank you all for serving. Thank you to Chartwells. Happy New Year, everyone. Like Ms. Wilson said, stay warm, stay safe. I know January feels like a perpetual Monday, but we're going to get through it, and spring's around the corner.
We hope.
We hope.
Real soon.
So Happy New Year. Have a good night.
Mrs. Price?
Reminds sort of lots of other things are being said, but welcome back to everyone. I know we had an extended holiday, but very huge thanks to all of our families for being patient and keeping our kids safe, even though Mother Nature was not wanting us to be back in our buildings. Our facility guys have done an awesome job keeping all of our walkways and paths clear for our folks to be safe. So haven't heard any great accidents, so keep up the great work, everyone. Be safe, be smart. I did go to the ROTC dinner. That was amazing because we have amazing kids and we have amazing families that helped us do those things. So keep doing the great work. Our winter sports kids are upcoming, so pick a sport, support the kids, go out there and be there. I'll see you at basketball. I'll save you a seat. One of the things I wanted to sort of touch on also is because it happened after our last board meeting was the combined choir concert from the middle school and the high school. Oh my gosh, that was absolutely fascinating, fabulous, amazing, and it set the tone for the whole holiday for me. If you missed it, put it on your calendar for next year. They were just amazing. And I'm just always thrilled at what our kids can do when they are given the chance and the opportunities. So thank you for supporting our kids. Thanks for being pioneers.
Thank you. Oh, I'd just like to say, did we get any feedback from our legislators for showing up for that meeting?
Not to me specifically. I mean, they obviously appreciated the extension of the invitation. I would argue it's on me at this point to stay regularly engaged with them. The session just started today. And I have a new relationship to build with Senator Klemp, which I'm committed to doing, and keeping you all in the loop as well. So I would argue that the impetus is on me more than them.
Okay. Alibi time? Okay, go ahead.
To remind everyone, please stop by here, sign these.
Yeah.
I don't want to chase you down.
Well, just real quick, my personal opinion on something. I think when we talk about our legislature, I think it'd be nice to have people write them and ask them how they have a conscience to give themselves a 93% pay raise when we have teachers that, deal with their kids every day of the week and on and on. But that to me was totally ridiculous. And nobody even blinked an eye, I guess. Meeting's adjourned. Don't forget to sign us.